Vinnie, I hope you had a great weekend. Welcome into the game here in Tuscaloosa.
Appreciate you for having me on. I'm excited for this week, even though there's a lot of animosity in the Sunseri household this week.
Okay, now hold on. You got to explain this to me. Help me out. Well, why is there a little discontent?
So Tennessee won, Florida won. So we have a 2-1 Florida Gators traveling up to Knoxville to face a 2-1 Tennessee Volunteers on Saturday.
Okay. No smack talk, I assume, right? Just it's all business as usual for the family.
Oh, there's always smack talk in an Italian household now. There's always a little bit of smack talk going on, but it's definitely all business, and everybody's trying to get the W.
Sure. Well, all right. So, Vinny, on Friday, you were all over this game. I don't think any of us had 62-7, but you did think that Alabama was going to have a great game, and offensively, I just want to hear your analysis as now it's official. Alabama beats them 62-7. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that this offense came out and performed extremely well, but they performed extremely well against a lesser opponent. I don't think this is one of the top-tier defenses in the SEC, and let alone the SEC West. I mean, you see Auburn and LSU in their game. You saw two juggernauts going against each other where LSU was able to pull off the one-point victory. But it is promising whenever your quarterback has a QBR of 98.4 for the third straight week. He throws for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he's 100% on third down, which is one of the most incredible statistics I've seen through 3 games of football in my entire life. But I don't think it's anywhere to be comfortable or to try and plateau off of. I think they have to keep pushing it, keep trying to get better each week.
All right, so when you look at this team, we're all pleased about the offense, and you can go 13 of 13 and 6 touchdowns and almost 300-yard passing. But let's analyze the defense. From your perspective, give us your thoughts on those secondary members going up against this explosive, or what was thought to be explosive offense from Ole Miss.
I knew Ole Miss was going to come out fast, and after that first play, I was really excited and intrigued to see how this secondary was going to come back and respond to giving up a big play on the first play. And, when you hold a quarterback to 7 for 22, only 133 yards passing, he throws 2 interceptions. I mean, you look back, his QBR is 4.9. You have to look back and say there was a lot of positives to come from this football game. However, Coach Saban walking into that film room today is going to say there's a lot of areas to improve. And the first play of the game is one of the biggest plays of the game. Getting a negative play, starting off on the right foot is always big in Coach Saban's mind. Starting off fast and finishing strong is what he always harps about. And there's room for improvement, but I also thought that this defense played extremely well.
All right. So, Vinny, because we say it, but I'm going to ask you how hard it is. Okay. When you get beat the way on that first play, how hard is it to be reminded that you got to have that short memory, get it out? But how hard is it? How difficult is it when you look at giving up that big play, 75 yards from Jordan Ta'amu to DJ Metcalf?
It's extremely hard because your pride's hurt. You went through a whole week of preparation. You feel extremely confident going to this game, and then you give up a play that kind of deflates all of your energy within the first 7 seconds of a football game. And it comes to being a mature football player. You got to understand that they schemed you up perfectly. It was the exact defense that they might have anticipated, and they were able to capitalize. However, the cornerback to come back, this defense to come back and just show and have 62 unanswered points is extremely positive. But you definitely have to learn from those kind of mistakes and be able to come out and be firing on all cylinders.
All right. I want to see if I can spin this around from just a layman's terms. We know that Ole Miss went into a one-dimensional offense of having to throw it because they were so far behind. How much of a test was that when you know that they're going to throw the football? I mean, we're overpraising the defense, or maybe we're not praising them enough. But when you know what they're trying to do, does that make it a lot easier for the defense knowing that Ole Miss has got to throw the football and you kind of know what's coming?
Of course it makes it easier. If a team is one-dimensional and you're anticipating pass, then you're obviously not going to be an 8-man front. You're obviously going to be in some type of defense that's going to deter the quarterback from having a certain type of confidence to throw certain passing routes. And you can dial up certain blitzes that you think are effective for passing down situations. So you got to give credit to this Alabama team. They put themselves in this situation to know that this Ole Miss offense had to throw the football. So it wasn't just given to them. They were on the road in an SEC environment. Both teams came in extremely high. Both offenses had a lot of success coming into this game. However, Alabama was able to execute more and put themselves in a situation to have a lot more success throughout this football game.
Vinny, I'm just curious, if we were handing out game balls on Alabama's defensive side of the football, give me a couple of guys that maybe you thought played extremely well for the Crimson Tide on that side of the football.
I think Deontay Thompson played extremely well. I think Xavier McKinney played extremely well. They both had interceptions in this football game. I think Mac Wilson started to find his way as the leader of this team. And you got to give it to Christian Miller, being able to provide a lot of pressure on this quarterback, being able to get a couple sacks, being able to create negative plays and putting them in third down and long situations is always a very positive thing for a defensive front. And it's got to keep improving because it's only going to get harder from here on out. You're going up against Jimbo Fisher this coming week. You have LSU coming up, you have Tennessee coming up, and you have Auburn coming up on the schedule. And you have Mississippi State, which a lot of people are sleeping on. But this quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald, is something special out of Starkville.
We're talking to Vinnie Sunseri right now, and let me go to the offensive side of the football. What do you do when you've got so many wide receivers, so many backs, offensive line even took a couple of steps, and I know it was against a very, very bad defense. But what do you do? And I ask you this almost every week. What do you do? Do you just say, hey, this is how I want to get beat? I mean, because if you give Tua time, he's going to pick you apart. And if you try to spend too much time with the wide receivers, another guy is going to get open. What do you do? How do you defend this? How do you go after this?
So I would attack Tua Tagovailoa the exact same way NFL teams try to attack Russell Wilson and Drew Brees. You have to get some type of rush up the middle that doesn't allow him to step up. You have to create hands and put hands up in front of his face so that he doesn't have clear throwing lanes, because he's not the tallest quarterback, but he is a very accurate quarterback and a very smart quarterback. But if you put him in high-pressure situations, you force him to throw balls off his back foot and don't allow him to have clear throwing lanes, I think you can have a lot of success. Also, I think that you have to try and stop them from passing the ball first and force them to run the football, which is uncharacteristic of an Alabama offense, because in years past you have running backs like Derrick Henry, Eddie Lacy, and TJ Yeldon who kind of set the momentum for the entire game, having a lot of yards on the ground and then setting up the play action pass for Blake Sims, AJ McCarron. So I think it's kind of a little bit backwards to how most people attack Alabama's offense, and I think that's why they're having so much success. People are coming in saying, we need to deter them from running the football and force them to pass the ball. Well, that just goes right into Tua Tagovailoa's wheelhouse, and he's going to pick you apart for as many yards as he can.
As a defensive back, knowing the talent at wide receiver, we always talk about safeties, getting in the box, getting a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage. Knowing the way they can take the top off the secondary as a defensive back, are you backstepping a little bit? I mean, are you kind of getting ready for that just to make sure that you're not, blowing the top off the back end of the defense?
Oh, you have to. You have to against this offense. They have so many weapons. You have to have some type of quarter, some type of cover two situations to start off this football game and say, guys, we are going to take the football out of Tua Tagovailoa's hands. We are going to make sure that he does not feel comfortable throwing the football. And we're going to say, I want to see this offensive line prove that this is a number one team caliber offensive line. I want to see Najee Harris. I want to see Damian Harris. I want to see Jacobs come out and beat us with their legs. I have complete faith that it's a possibility that it can happen, but until you show me, I can't believe it. And from what I've seen so far, a lot of these defenses are going to say, you know what, we're going to let this offensive line try and prove it because we don't want Tua Tagovailoa to have the ball in his hands.
So, Vinny, when you look at this leadership team walking in on Monday, you're feeling good about yourself. You go on the road in the SEC, 62-7. You got fans hanging out. Handing out rat poison. You got media guys. I mean, I was shocked at all the NFL legends that were chiming in on Tua's performance. Everybody's talking how great you are. How hard is that to put that to the side and focus on the task ahead?
I think that's the biggest challenge for Nick Saban and this coaching staff. This team is young. This team is having a lot of success early on, but I think it's a gold-plated success. I don't think it is against high-caliber teams. I don't think it's against people that, when you look back in this season, you're going to say, well, they had key wins against Louisville, they had key wins against Arkansas State, and they had key wins against Ole Miss. You're going to say the key wins throughout this football season are going to be LSU, they're going to be Auburn, and they're going to be Mississippi State, and possibly, if they're able to have enough success, an SEC championship win. So I think the biggest challenge for this coaching staff is to come in and say, you guys performed extremely well, and you went out and execute the game plan, barring a couple plays throughout the game. However, there is a lot of room for improvement, and we have to keep progressing, because if we don't keep progressing, we are going to decline, and if we decline, everybody will surpass us, and we won't be where we want to be at the end of the year, and that is holding a trophy.
Vinny, another game that we were all dialed into is LSU and Auburn. Your biggest takeaway from that game?
My biggest takeaway from this football game is how good this LSU defense is, and how precise and how good of a game manager this quarterback was. He didn't come out and wow us with his arm. He was 15 for 34 for 249 yards and a touchdown, but he was the one that did not make the mistakes throughout the game. If you go back and look at it, Jarrett Stidham's 2 interceptions are kind of what turned the favor for LSU, and their defense capitalized, and they played extremely well on the road.
Okay, so when you look up at LSU, not trying to look ahead, but there's some winnable games here. And then the game that we all sort of counted out, and maybe their back was against the wall, and, we were talking about the hottest seat in college football with Coach O. You begin to kind of look at this game, and you start looking at LSU and Georgia and some of those matchups maybe on down the road here in a few weeks, maybe a little bit more difficult for the Dogs going to Baton Rouge.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely tough. It's never easy to go into Baton Rouge and get a win, especially when you have a defense flying around like they had during the game. The middle linebacker for LSU was an All-American last year for a reason. I think I saw him have 3 or 4 tackles for a loss in the first half, and he was all over the field playing extremely well, and that secondary was able to get a couple turnovers. And, going into Auburn, performing at a high level when a lot of people don't think you're going to be able to get a win, and getting a win and going home pretty confident, it's something scary, especially when it's those LSU athletes.
Vinny, you addressed something on Twitter when we were talking about Tua Tagovailoa, and you may have already touched this, but I just want to make sure that I'm giving you a chance to address this. Tua Tagovailoa now 13 of 13 on third downs, 298 yards, 6 touchdowns. You talked about that you think that maybe there's going to be some adversity headed Tua's way. Kind of break that down for us.
So a lot of people got angry because they said he faced adversity in the national championship game, which he did. He faced a certain adversity, which was the thought that there was no way this freshman quarterback could come in and win this football game. That wasn't a self-created adversity. He's going to, throughout these next coming weeks, face some type of adversity where it's self-created. He's going to be on the football field, and he's going to do something wrong, which will either be a pick, which will either be getting off the field on third down, which will be some type of situation that he has created for himself. And whenever you create that type of adversity for yourself and you have negative plays and people aren't really just hyping you up and just loving on you as much as you have been loved on throughout this entire season, you're going to have to really slow down, calm down, find yourself within the football game, trust your teammates, and kind of dial back in. And that's the type of adversity I'm talking about. He's gonna find himself in some type of situation. It might not be this week, it might not be in 3 weeks, but he's gonna find himself in a situation where he created the adversity for himself, and he's gonna have to find the maturity and trust in himself enough to get out of that situation.
We're talking to Vinnie Sunseri, and if you go back to Vinnie, he was one of 2 or 3 guys who were very high on Tua Tagovailoa, and some of that was because what he had noticed in New Orleans. He was during the practice where Tua Tagovailoa went 54-58 that Nick Saban released a few weeks ago to Reese Davis from ESPN as Alabama prepared for Clemson. Vinny, when you look at Tua Tagovailoa, and this is so crazy, But how much more ceiling is there to this offense? Because we've only really seen 6 quarters of really solid play. I mean, if they leave them on the field, I mean, we're going to score 90 this season. I mean, what do you do? I mean, how much more ceiling's left for this offense?
I would say if this group of guys were seniors and they had been playing together for the last 3 years and they're probably all about to go to the NFL, that the ceiling was probably maxed out. But when you have a true sophomore that started in 3 games and played cleanup duty as a freshman, you have true sophomore wide receivers, you have a true sophomore running back, and you have an offensive line that has only the potential to get better. I mean, the growth opportunity for this offense is exponential. And if they continue to stay humble, if they continue to stay hungry, and they continue to work and listen to Coach Saban and listen to these offensive coaches, there's going to be something pretty special. And if he actually plays an entire football game, you might actually see a player that could win the Heisman Trophy as a sophomore.
Vinny, if we're out on Hackberry there at the Jack's restaurant today, right now, Nick Saban is out getting his guys. Tomorrow, the same time, they'll be out there. If you and I are just sitting out there and we're having a milkshake, you think we'll be able to hear Nick Saban? I mean, this week, is it going to be rough on those guys inside those gates?
Without a doubt. He's trying to humble this football team. Everybody's coming in and say that they've already won the national championship. No one can compete with them. This offense is too explosive. This defense is playing well enough that they're just holding teams to, if you hold them under 20 points, then Tua Tagovailoa is going to score 60 to 70 points, and it's not even going to be a football game. So what I think Coach Saban's going to come in is kind of be the devil's advocate for this upcoming week. He's going to be all over this football team. He's going to be demanding perfection. And if you know Coach Saban, that's all he ever expects is perfection on the football field. So I think it's going to be a very interesting week. I think it's going to be a very animated Coach Saban throughout this entire football week. And I'm excited to be on the sidelines for this football game on Saturday.
Hey, it's going to be a lot of fun to have you in Tuscaloosa. Hopefully we can be able to connect, I know, on Friday. Maybe we can do something live. I know a lot of the people on Friday enjoyed talking with you. Some questions came from them that you kind of helped us prepare for Saturday as well. Vinny, let's talk about who it's made possible by. Throw it back to you for the sponsorship opportunity.
Sponsorship is provided by Rounders on the Strip across from Publix. They are the #1 bar in Tuscaloosa. All kinds of variety of music. If you like rap or country, they have everything you need. 50-plus varieties of beers, 30-plus TVs, and a 11 by 17-foot big screen TV to watch the Tide roll on Saturdays.
Vinny, we'll hang out this weekend, man. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And see, this is the great thing. If you listen to Vinny's segments on Friday, when you get to Saturday, you're not shocked, right? I mean, we were all – I think you said 62-7. Did you not? I mean, no, I'm just kidding. But you were all over these picks. I mean that's a crazy. I guess when we're picking those who have studied under the best college coach in college football, we kind of go inside that locker room and kind of understand what it's like to prepare for these upcoming opponents.
I might have to start jumping in on these parlays if you guys keep giving me picks for the football games.
Hey, we'll talk Texas A&M on Friday, man. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
Thank you for having me on.